Do you know who holds the record for going the fastest ever on a motorcycle? How about who holds the record for going the furthest ever on a motorcycle? The furthest jump ever made? Or even, how about this one? Do you know who holds the record for the most men on a motorcycle at one time going down the road? For answers to these and much, much more, we're going to dive into this week's episode, which comes from this fascinating folder I just came across in the archives titled Motorcycle Racing. Let's go. Before we dive into this folder, I'd love to ask you to hit the bell to subscribe, hit the button to like, and by all means, leave a comment. Love the engagement. It goes a long way to helping me bring back this iconic 100-year-old brand back to the digital age. Welcome back. This is Jeff Hix, curator of the Strange As It Seems archives and grandnephew of John Hix, who created Strange As It Seems back in the late 1920s. And so to kick off, we'll organize this episode kind of how John Hix did. Oftentimes these folders were organized around a John Hix scrapbook, which is, I think, in the early, maybe late 30s, early 40s. John Hix started pulling together these comic strips for the Sunday comics, and he called them the John Hix scrapbook. And it was really how the archives ended up being organized by subject, because he was pulling all the previous stories together by subject. So this folder is really organized around this scrapbook, which was entitled Motorcycle Madness. So we'll go around the horn on that John Hix scrapbook. The first one, though, is based on, I guess, really the distance. So the furthest that anybody had jumped. And this goes back to 1934, the first time he had done a motorcycle jump. And that was Officer John Balick, Chicago policeman. At this point in 1934, he had made a 40-foot jump. And I love this insert here. This is really cool. It's from Modern Mechanics, November of 1929. And that's the photograph. A 40-foot leap on a motorcycle means nothing to John Balick of the Chicago Police Force. It was one of the stunts at the annual police outing at Soldier Field. And we've got a 14-inch Army gun that had to be silenced because it was shaking the houses. We've got the first tennis ball machine gun invented. And then on the back, this is pretty cool too. The winner of the Women's Air Derby, Mrs. Louise McFetrick Thaden of Pittsburgh, won first prize in the Women's Air Derby from Santa Monica, California, where I live now, to Cleveland, Ohio. Total elapsed flying time of 20 hours. The Women's Derby, however, was marred with one death and a number of other mishaps. Marvell Crosson was killed when her parachute did not have time to open after she leaped. So kind of a dangerous event there, but pretty cool. So that kind of kicked off the motorcycle jumping. And then here is G.H. Stickler at the top left of this one. So at this point of the John Hix scrapbook, G.H. Stickler had leaped 84 feet on a motorcycle and rising 9 feet. This is Boise, Idaho. This actually went back to 1925. So kind of a crazy feat there. G.H. Stickler, which as usual got me thinking, I wonder what the longest jump on a motorcycle is today. I found this really interesting story about the late Alex Harvill. He officially became the world record holder in August of 2022 for the longest distance jumped. Amazing. 10 years after he managed to remain airborne for 425 feet. And a year after his passing, he became the official world record holder. So back in 2012, Harvill accomplished what many would consider an unthinkable feat of literally flying past the world record. So previously it was 360 feet, and he surpassed it by 65 feet. It's unknown why it took so long to certify Harvill as a world record holder, despite the stunt being documented by the Guinness Book of World Records. So kind of an interesting story here. Sadly, Harvill died doing what he loved during a jump at the Moses Lake Air Show at the Grant County International Airport, June of 2021. He attempted a jump and fell short of the landing area, colliding with the broadside of a dirt ramp, and was killed on impact. But his legacy remains, and he is the world record holder for the longest jump on a motorcycle today. And here in the bottom left is the Cross of Death, or I think I saw this too. Yeah, the motor cage. I think I've also seen this in circuses as the Globe of Death. Crazy stunt. In this case, two motorcycles ride inside an 18-foot steel cage at the same time, one going horizontally, the other vertically. This was in Paris, and I think we've all seen that, but this is right when this first started. They call this squirrel cage thriller the Cross of Death, gyrating at high speed in a steel lattice sphere about 18 feet in diameter. The Paris amusement park, crazy. But I think they've gone up to like 6 riders in the Globe at one time. Certainly gotten crazier since then, but this is when the stunt was first invented. And now we've got a guy, Harry Lorraine. How about this guy? I think I've got some pictures of Harry as well. Rode a cycle through the plate glass at 60 miles an hour. He wore a felt hat for a crash helmet? What the heck? Back in England, crazy. It was a good break for Harry Lorraine, daredevil British cyclist, when he smashed through a sheet of plate glass without a scratch. It was just a stunt for an English movie. And over in the top right here, we've got going up, Swede Anderson. He rode a motorcycle 160 feet up a 68-degree incline. Did it in 5 3/4 seconds. This is in Chicago back in 1933. And how about this really cool photograph? Which way is it? There it is. The guy's popping a wheelie, it looks like. What a great, I love some of these old photographs, as well as here's the article, breaking the tape in thrilling fashion. So kicking the bike up in the air, landing on his feet, winning the annual hill climb of the Windy City Motorcycle Club of Chicago. He shot 160 feet up an incline of 68 degrees in 5.74 seconds. Crazy. Swede Anderson. And then in the top middle, we got a 3-decked pyramid. How about that? Performed by 6 men on 2 motorcycles. But to answer the question at the top of the hour, or top of the episode, most men on a motorcycle, this is funny because I saw all the ones John Hix had been collecting. I think he was trying to figure out, which one, who held the record. Crazy. It looked like here is the first one, 14 men on a motorcycle by the Los Angeles Club. That at the time set the world's record for live weight on a stock machine. Pretty cool. Popular Science from March of 1938. Amateur daredevils give motorcycle rodeos. There's a flying trapeze there. And then, that the 3-decked pyramid is also on this Amateur Daredevils Popular Science article there. And then I guess a little bit later he found, how about this? The 18 men on a motorcycle. We claim a world record for the number of men and also for weight. Patrolman James Gordon. It seems like these policemen loved riding their motorcycles. 18 men. This is September 19th, 1938. But we've got 19 New York policemen. New York took the, this is 1939, for a ride as Gotham's finest stage show to show that they are fit. I guess the previous record was held by Mexico City Police, but here's that photograph. 19 New York cops, setting the record. I guess And that was the 19 men on a motorcycle, which of course led me to wonder, who holds the record today? And how many? Take a guess, if you would. You probably didn't hit it. How many men on a motorcycle today? The official world record by the Army Service Corps Tornadoes of the Indian Army now hold the record for 58 men on a motorcycle. Check out this video here. These guys jumping on, crazy. So yeah, that's the record today for most men on a motorcycle, and that kind of completes the John Hix scrapbook for motorcycle madness. And here's a young daredevil. Look at it. Check out this kid. Ian Hoskins first showed up, I guess, in 1931, and then again in 39 from Wembley, England. He was racing, apparently, at 5 years old back in 1930. This showed him in 1931. Motorcycle speed champion at the age of 7. I love these couple of articles of him. Meet England's midget motorcycle champion. He is Ian Hoskins, 7-year-old Londoner. Has been burning up the track on his miniature machine, and here's a picture of him back at 5 years old. Little speed demon there. Crazy. Ian Hoskins. And here's an early famous pioneer of, he was a pioneer aircraft manufacturer. His name's Glenn Curtis, and he showed up several times. I've got him here by Hix. This is when my grandma Elsie took over after my grandfather Ernest had died in a plane crash. For a little while, she just said by Hix to kind of keep it going. I maybe just didn't want to know that a woman was running it. I don't know. That was kind of an interesting choice. But it's Glenn Curtis, pioneer aircraft manufacturer. He had held the world's motorcycle speed record for 23 years. This is back in 1907. And Ernest Hix had featured that before. So she was actually bringing that back up from the Ernest Hix. Crazy. Yeah, and Elsie covered it later. Again, pretty astonishing guy, I guess, who had really kind of the early pioneer. Glenn Curtis, who won his fame as a pioneer in man's newest and fastest mode of travel, aviation. This is way back, 1935. Set his first and most enduring record for speed on the ground. Curtis began his racing achievements with an interest in bicycles. He won several of these races before he designed and built a motorcycle which, in 1906, set an all-time record for speed for all types of conveyance, a speed of 136 miles per hour. This record was unsurpassed for 10 years. Crazy. The success he gained in building small but powerful gasoline motors led to his interest in the problems of the infant aviation industry, where motors of this type were especially needed. His success in that line is well known. In 1908, he won the Scientific American Trophy. In 1909, the Gordon Bennett Cup. And in 1910, a $10,000 prize. Can you imagine? $10,000 for a flight from Albany to New York. He invented the flying boat. And in 1919, a ship of this type crossed the Atlantic to establish a record as the first ever to make that flight. Crazy. Glenn Curtis. Which brings us to the final question from the top of the episode. The fastest anyone's ever gone on a motorcycle, and at least in 1955, is that what it was? Yeah, 1955. John Allen of Fort Worth, Texas. He was riding a motorcycle not supercharged for the two-way east-west run on the Bonneville Salt Flats, and he averaged 193.72 miles an hour for the kilometer and 192.308 miles an hour for the full mile. Both are new world records. The fastest speeds ever obtained by a motorcycle through electric timing. And it is the first time the motorcycle speed record had ever been held in the USA, and a fantastic photograph here of Johnny Allen in his Triumph Speed Demon motorcycle. I love this, and a really cool letter from Johnson Motors, a Triumph dealership, I guess. Of course, they always wanted funny in advertising or publicizing these events. Under our contracts, required that any press release refer to these records as having been made on the Bonneville salt beds or flats. Crazy. Letter from the Secretary Treasurer there of Johnson Motors. But kind of amazing. The incredible Johnny Allen, at least in 1955, the world speed record holder for motorcycle racing. And as always, it kind of leads me to curiously wonder, what's the world record holder today for speed on a motorcycle? And check this motorcycle out. Wow, this thing looks like a torpedo. Fastest motorcycle speed achieved, 605 kilometers per hour. Holy smoke. That's about 376 miles per hour in his top oil attack streamliner. Again, at the Bonneville Salt Flats in Utah. This was actually 2010, so this guy's held the record for 15 years. Since then, Rocky Robinson with amazing, I think there's a video in here too of him achieving, that 600 kilometer, breaking the 600 kilometer mile or kilometer per hour. Wow, crazy. Look at that guy go. Holy smoke. One other little small story in this, kind of an amazing, although it's motorcycle racing, I did find this one in here. It's a 1943. For all you cyclists out there, this is bicyclists. Crazy. December 29th, 1943 cycling. Crazy. Taking a bath. The notes on importance of cleanliness. But check this out. All the important records, world's tandem records, national unpaced road records, chief path records of the world, chief British amateur records, and then on the back, all the 1943 winners. But the story that was picked up off of this was R.J. Brown, Kaleva RC. I wonder where that is. But he's somewhere in Britain, I guess. The one-armed wonder. He rode 238 miles in 12 hours. Crazy, with just one arm. Well, that wraps up this episode on motorcycle racing from the Strange As It Seems archives. Thank you for joining me this week. And please, if you like content like this, please hit the bell to subscribe. Hit the thumb up to like, and by all means leave a comment if you have any stories from yourself or your family about motorcycles or motorcycle racing. We'd love to hear about it in the comments, and I'll leave you, as I always do, with a quote from John Hix's first book in 1928 when he first launched the comic strip. The author launches this book of the curious in nature and humankind on the vast sea of public opinion, with the hope that it will fulfill its mission to entertain and acquaint its readers with some of the marvels of the world in which we live.